Yeah.
They're going the back door!
They're coming in through the back door!
We are so keeping this as the intro to the show. Welcome everyone to the Full Mount Podcast. I'm Chris Branch, as always, and joined with me is my homie Nick Kakuro.
What up?
Yes, that is the most professional you are going to get from these two maniacs. So, if my mouse wants to work and I can clear that stuff out. Man, what a crazy night of fights, huh?
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. I was very entertained.
Seeing as I really shouldn't be qualified to do this, considering before the fight I was drinking and riding quads.
Hey, you know what? That sounds more fun than sitting down watching fights, you know?
I mean, it was a blast. And yes, before you ask, we did wear helmets. And was it safe? Probably not. But we did it anyway because...
YOLO, because YOLO.
Exactly, you gotta live. Alright,
Absolutely.
so, seeing as you watched the majority of them, do you want to break down the card for us?
Absolutely, I'm all over it. The first fight of the night was supposed to be Mara Romeo Barella versus Miranda Maverick, but that got canceled because I think one of them got COVID. I can't remember, though.
It's possible.
It's possible.
Yes,
I could be
cornermen.
wrong.
One of the cornermen. I see it right at the top. One of the cornermen tested positive.
Oh, there you go. Okay. So that sucks. But the next fight, which was technically the first fight of the night, Jordan Griffin versus Yusuf Zalal. Now, that fight was a great fight. Going up against Jordan Griffin, who's a veteran. Zalal's 23 years old. I think it was his UFC debut. Maybe it was his second
I
UFC
believe it
fight.
was.
Yeah, it
Griffin,
was.
Jordan Griffin, though, he's no slouch, so that's a big way to start your career in the UFC.
Yeah, that fight went to distance all 3 rounds, and Jordan Griffin didn't look great, in my opinion. He had his hands down a lot. He took a lot of shots. Zalal looked really impressive, and that was a good win. Next fight, Kay Hansen versus Jin Yu Fry. Kay Hansen's UFC debut. 20 years old. One of the youngest to ever do it, to ever start out.
I did see this.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I was incredibly impressed with Kay's performance.
As someone who has, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling background and myself, armbars are very tricky.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a high-level submission game and you have an armbar in your repertoire, you are dangerous. So the way she pulled that off was pretty spectacular.
It was unbelievable.
I look forward to seeing her for a long time being a very, very special fighter in the UFC.
And if I remember correctly, it took her a while to get to the ground because she was boxing for the majority of the fight, right?
Yeah.
So, and Fry looked good standing up, so it was really clutch for, Kay to get on the ground and put her in that armbar for an incredible UFC debut victory. The next fight, Tanner Boser versus Felipe Lins. That fight I thought was going to go the distance because heavyweights usually go the distance or it's an early knockout, and this one was an early knockout, having Tanner Boser quickly put away Felipe Lins.
You ever watch Tanner Boser throw his hands, though?
Yeah.
He's like a Mack truck.
Yeah, but that fight, the knockout was awesome to watch. I didn't expect it. I thought it was going to go the distance. I thought it was just going to be a close decision. Before the fight, I was predicting that, and all credit to Tanner. That was a nice knockout on Lins, and that fight went away in the first round.
He is a beast, that's for sure.
Absolutely. The next fight was Louis Pena versus, is it Kama or Hama?
I think it's Kama.
Kama, yeah. I didn't know if the K was silent or not. Kama Worthy.
It's a soft K.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So Louis Pena, very lengthy guy. He had the reach, the height. He had it all on Worthy, but until they went to the ground, Worthy looked great with the ground and pound. He got him in I want to say guillotine. Yep, guillotine.
Yep, looking right at it.
Great finish there for Worthy. I think he's a great fighter, and we'll see when he fights next. Now, going on to the main card, Sarah McCann and Aspen Ladd got canceled. I'm not sure why. Do you?
I can tell you in 2 seconds. I think it was health related.
I think so too. Let's just go with that. Okay.
I think it was health related.
Yeah.
Oh no, Aspen Ladd got hurt.
Oh really?
Yeah, she tore ACL. That's right. Both ACL and MCL. That's right. I do remember reading that.
That sucks.
So, all the best to Aspen Ladd. Love her. She's an amazing fighter. I hope for a speedy recovery. I know that ACL injury all too well. So, I can't wait for her to come back, and I'd love to see her face off Sarah McMahon.
Absolutely. That fight was probably going to be a great fight. So
Oh, for sure.
It's too bad it got canceled, but I'm sure Dana will reschedule that. Anyway, at the catch weight, you got Sean Woodson versus Julian Erosa, and that fight was a submission in the third round by Erosa, who I thought looked great against Sean Woodson, who came in there undefeated. Yeah, I was impressed. Oh, sorry.
Nice.
I was impressed with the fight. Yeah, right. It was so
off
smooth.
the rails, guys. Off the rails.
Sorry, I'm just really excited.
I do
right?
want to point out before we move on, this is going to be labeled number 2. We had one last week. We had a great one last week, but due to my boneheaded mistakes of not checking audio levels, we had a 57-minute podcast with no audio. So you guys would have seen us talking, but continued to turn your volume up, but nothing was going to come out. So I apologize for that.
57 minutes of my day were gone.
This is our second podcast, and I've already screwed up audio.
I remember you texting me, you just go, so we have a little bit of a problem. I forgot to turn the audio on.
Yeah, we have no audio. Is there a way to fix that? No. Unless you want to overdub everything you just said for an hour, there is no fixing.
So, just because of your crucial error, it didn't put us away. We're back here, very confident.
We're back,
we got
and
this
the audio
working.
levels are set today.
So Erosa with the submission in the third round. Takashi Sato versus Jason Witt. Sato ended him really quick.
Takashi Sato is stupid underrated.
A great fighter, knocked
He's
him out in the first
monster.
round. Inside the first minute. First
Yes.
minute of the fight, knocked him out. That's all I gotta say about that. So Brendan Allen versus Kyle Dawkins. This fight was brutal. And I mean brutal.
Yeah.
These guys beat each other up, went the full distance. Brendan Allen has 3 fractures in his face. Is that correct?
Yes, so we will discuss that a little later, but yeah, I think that's our initial reports were 3 fractures in his face.
Yeah, so that tells you they really went at it. They didn't give up. I was very entertained. Great fight.
Yes.
Now,
So
on to
this-
the fights
yeah.
you saw.
These are the last 3 fights are the fights I saw. Maurice Green versus Gian Villante. The fight was kind of a back and forth for most of the first 2 rounds.
Yeah. It was pretty unbelievable. I mean, the
And then
ending surprised me.
Out of nowhere, after Green had got caught.
Bad.
Out of
I thought he
nowhere.
was done.
So what was impressive is the fact that he managed to win by arm triangle, but he was on the bottom.
Yeah.
He was on the bottom, and then all of a sudden Villante taps, and it's like, what just happened?
Well, really what it was is he didn't really have a tight squeeze on the
No, but
neck
it
or
was
the face.
where he was, there was no way Villante was going to get out.
Yeah, so Villante couldn't breathe because his face was stuffed. And it wasn't crushed, but it was, messed
Yes,
with.
but-
So he cut off his breathing, and he was stuck. So Villante with the tap there. And now we get
absolutely.
to the...
Well, the thing,
Yeah.
I think, if you want to talk about comebacks, if there's a comeback of the night, Maurice Green should win that, because he got caught several times.
I thought the last time he got caught...
It was over. I thought it was done, yeah. He
I thought the
managed
ref
to
was
come
going to
back
jump in.
and then choke him out, but Mike
Hey, you
Perry-
got to give credit to the ref there though, because that
Making a
would have been a
smart
bad stoppage, as we
Yeah.
can see. Yeah.
I don't remember who it was. I want to say it was Herzog. I don't know for
It wasn't
sure.
Herzog. It was I forget his name. It was the really short guy with the neck tattoo.
Oh, Keith Peterson.
Keith Peterson,
Yes,
yeah. The
he's-
50-year-old first grader.
Yeah, no, he's a great ref, and that was credit to him for not stopping. That fight ended perfectly.
Yeah.
Co-main, Mike Perry versus Mickey Gall. All right, so I don't know about you, but I was utterly shocked at this fight.
I wasn't shocked. Why were you shocked?
I was shocked because Mike Perry's domination didn't just start on his feet. It wasn't just in the kickboxing portion of the fight. He was willingly and without hesitation taking Mickey Gall to the ground.
That's right.
Mickey Gall has one of the most impressive ground game resumes of anyone in the UFC right now.
Absolutely.
And he does what he wants. He imposes his will on all of his opponents. But Mike Perry goes, yeah, you know what? That's cute. Let me take you down. And he did, and he dominated him for 3 rounds with an easily unanimous fight. But
Can we also take into note Mike Perry had no coaches with him today? Only for that fight, only his girlfriend.
So I feel like there's a level of cockiness and also a level of confidence involved in that. Like to have the confidence to know you're not going to need a cornerman or anyone in your team in your corner for that fight.
Yeah.
It would, and honestly, that it's been a long time coming. Obviously, Mike Perry's still trying to shake off the rust from getting knocked or choked out by Cowboy, and really trying to find his bearings again. I think we're going to see a lot from him in the welterweight division. But I'll tell you what, man, that was super impressive to see that level of domination on the ground over someone as good as Mickey Gall.
And I'm not a Mike Perry fan like you are. You aren't either. So
it's not that I'm not. I respect his ability. It's just he's
a little full of himself.
I don't like a lot of people with face tattoos.
So Perry with the great win, dominant win over Mickey Gall, who's not a joke. He's a great fighter
Mickey
too.
Gall is a stud.
Yeah, he's a great fighter. Both fighters
are
very good.
He'll bounce back from this. He's young.
So, the main event. Dustin Poirier versus Dan Hooker.
Can we
fight
just
of the
say
night.
Fight of the Year candidate?
It's candidate for Fight of the Year. That
candidate.
fight was unbelievably good, guys. It was absolutely incredible to watch, to witness. I was lucky to watch it with my buddy Will and my father.
Maybe one of these days we'll get your dad on the podcast.
Yeah, we'll get him. Our dads. How's that?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I'd love to see my dad and your dad go back and forth for 20 minutes.
Well, we just sit there laughing, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, anyway.
What we got to talk about, before we talk about the winner, is Dan Hooker was winning most of the fight.
He won the first 2 rounds pretty decisively.
Yeah, and then Dustin Poirier comes back and just
wins all 3 rounds. It went the distance, all 5. And guys, Dustin Poirier is as tough as it comes, man.
Here's my take on this fight. So obviously I'm a lot older than you, so I remember MMA in its heyday when you had the original Ultimate Fighter. You had like the prime of Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz. Like I saw that.
Yeah.
When you had Royce Gracie still fighting in the UFC, like I remember all of that. I'm dating myself here, guys. It goes back almost 30 years at this point. But when I talk about the greatest fights of all time, my number one is always Ultimate Fighter Season 1 finale, Forrest Griffin versus Stephan Bonnar, where they went to war for 3 rounds, stood in the pocket, and beat the hell out of each other for 3 rounds. Like, if you ever get the chance, find that fight and go watch it. This is going to be up there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Without question, this fight has to be up as one of the greatest of all time.
And let's not forget how crucial this Poirier-Hooker fight was, because both of these guys are top 5 ranked lightweights, and both of these guys are going to want to fight the winner of Gaethje and Khabib, which will be in September.
Habib's cleaned out 155 pretty much. So you're at this point just trying to find someone for him to fight, but no, that was impressive. So
I think the winner. I think Poirier should fight Ferguson next, though.
I feel like Ferguson's going to need a little bit of time to heal up from getting his face beat in for 5 rounds by Gaethje.
That was bad.
So overall thoughts on the card?
I give it an A-. I liked it. It was as entertaining as a fight night as I've seen. And yeah, I have no complaints. You?
So obviously I missed most of the card due to having fun.
Yeah.
But from what I saw the last 3 fights, I'll tell you what, man, the UFC, and I think I said it last podcast, and I've been saying it to you forever, whether you have big names on these fight night cards or you don't, they're bringing it. They're bringing every bit of it with all these guys and girls that just want to fight. That's all they want to do is they want to fight. And they're not worried about where they're on the card, whether you have people in the crowd or not. That's what they're about, and they're there for that.
Absolutely. And I couldn't be more thankful that these are good fights, because we don't really have a lot of sports going on due to the COVID-19 pandemic. A lot of live sports, I should say. And
we have replays. We have racing, soccer, and MMA, and Korean baseball.
In Korean baseball, that's right. So I'm really glad this is going well. This is the only sport I follow that is live right now. So
although it hasn't been without trying to get him into racing, he has watched a little bit. He's probably not a fan, but he's seen it. It's not like he hasn't, but he's seen it. That's a topic for another day.
So moving on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's pretend that wasn't said.
Let's just, yeah, hold on. We're going to move on and pretend that wasn't weird.
Yeah. Okay, so what are we talking about next on the list, Chris?
I want to say it was a couple weeks ago. The man, Chael P. Sonnen, the villain, the American gangster, whatever you want to call him. Everyone's
Love you, Chael.
Loser. Because he does lose a fair amount. He was on the Pat McAfee podcast.
Yeah.
If your computer's telling you to eat a dick. In the middle of this. This is the quality content you guys can expect from us. But Chael Sonnen was on the Pat McAfee podcast, and he was talking about there was a fight that he took on like 20 days' notice, and he ended up dropping like 36 pounds. And he never specified the weight class or the fight, but that leads me to a lot of conversation that you and I have talked about a lot, how I'm not a fan of weight cutting.
I'm not either. I'm not a fan of extreme weight cutting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a fan of weight cutting in general because you look at the way that fighters do it, especially in the U.S. Like, we could talk about one championship after on how they do their weight cuts, which makes more sense. But the way that they do it with UFC, Bellator, PFL, like those, you're basically dehydrating yourself for days, and then you look sickly when you get on the scale, just to make the weight, where you're probably dropping 20 pounds. It's like, if let's say I go into a fight, my weight class is 185, okay? If I am weighing about 25 pounds more, to drop down to 185, why am I fighting at 185?
That's a good point.
Like, you're losing so much weight.
Yeah.
Just fight a weight class up if you have to.
So basically, that's kind of my opinion on it. If you have to weight cut, like if you got to cut 5 pounds in 2 weeks, like whatever.
That's doable. That's respect. That's doable.
I'm okay with that. But if you need to cut 11 pounds in a week, that's too much. That's not safe.
Well, look at Khabib. The first or second time that Khabib fought Tony Ferguson, he almost died doing weight cuts.
Yeah, he did.
Like, there's a problem. There's a massive problem. And I know Joe Rogan has voiced this hundreds of times, that there's a massive problem in MMA with weight cutting, and people die from it. You can die, you can get super sick. We watched, 2 weeks ago, 3 fighters missed weight, and then one had to pull out of the card because he was getting sick because of weight cutting. So what I think they should do is, the way that one championship does all of their weight cutting is they do hydration tests through a fighter's fight camp to make sure and confirm that you're not only cutting weight safely, but you're doing it the right way. So you're staying at the fight weight that you need to, but you're dropping down below, and you're not completely ruining your body and putting yourself in a dangerous point where you're gonna have to fight for your life, and maybe if you continue the path you're on. Like, we saw that. I want to say we saw that when the whole Khabib Conor situation happened, and you had like 3 or 4 fighters that were getting close to being able to fight Khabib and ended up being Al Iaquinta, but a couple of them, they were told to stop cutting weight because they were doing it in an unsafe way, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I basically, you're not going to get a debate here. I mean, the main thing is fighter safety for me.
Absolutely.
So,
that should be above anything, you know?
Absolutely. Safety first, always. So, extreme weight cutting I'm not cool with. I think they need to have more restrictions on that in the UFC. And look at Chris Cyborg. She has to almost kill herself every time.
I just want to point out, she does that just to get to 145.
Yeah, barely. She barely gets to even the weight she can do
without dying. So,
she can barely fight the only weight she's able to.
Well, the thing is where you and I have talked about, instead of her signing with Bellator, I think I'd mentioned this to you. I think she should have signed with the Professional Fighters League. They have a 155-pound weight class for the women.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
a better move for her.
Absolutely.
They have a season. They have a season. They have a playoffs. They have a championship. Then they have an off season. So you're fighting in that season standpoint. You're fighting then. So you only have to stay 155 from one time to another, and then you're fine the rest.
Yeah.
And I feel
Yep.
like for her, that's a better move. That's a healthier move to where she doesn't have to drop down an extra 10 pounds. She can keep an extra 10 pounds on her, feel a little healthier, and just understand that I have to maintain this weight until I'm done. It's like that's best case scenario for Cyborg would have been that.
I agree. I fully agree with that. All right, cool.
Alexander Gustafsson's coming back.
Yes, sir. Yes, he is against Fabricio Werdum in July. It's a fight night. Am I correct?
Yes.
July 25th fight night.
Thing. That's happening at heavyweight.
Yeah. So.
All right. So here's the thing with Alexander Gustafsson, who, for the record, is only 18-6. He's had some amazing fights. He's been the top dog. As a matter of fact, if you go watch the first fight with John Jones, he beat John Jones.
I thought he won against John Jones.
Yeah.
Sorry for all you John Jones lovers, but he lost
won that fight.
A couple fights.
I mean, he's only fought twice. As a matter of fact, he's only fought once a year since 2016. So he's obviously on the other side of his career. He's still got a lot left. He's only 33. But you could tell he just needed some time off. I don't blame him. But yeah, he's coming back to fight Fabricio Werdum, former heavyweight champion. It'd be July 31st, I think they said it was.
Yeah.
Because I know for a while he was talking about coming back, and there was nothing set in stone after he retired when he lost to Anthony Smith. He got choked out by Anthony Smith. Let's be real.
Yeah, he did.
But,
so,
I mean, yeah, I'm excited to see him fight Werdum.
I think he's going to beat him. I think Fabricio's going to lose this fight. I think Gustafsson's going to come back strong, and he's going to impress us all.
I mean, that's a big thing to say.
Yeah, that's what I think. I'm a huge Alexander Gustafsson fan, so I could be biased.
Yeah, I love both of them. I don't know who I'd pick though.
I'm picking Gustafsson by TKO third round.
But you also got to think Fabricio. I don't know when the last time Fabricio fought. So it's one of those situations where
Fabricio fought 249.
He did too, didn't he? Who did he fight?
I think Oleinik.
Did he win that fight?
Hang on, let me check really quick. You keep talking while I check it out.
I don't remember if he won that fight, but still, you've got two veterans. And this is the first time that Gustafsson's going to make the jump to a heavyweight. So I think this is going to be a little easier for him. He's a big guy, so getting down to 205 takes a lot out of him each time.
All right, so I was right. He fought Alexei Oleinik at 249, and 249. I'm sorry.
Did he win?
He lost by decision.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because that fight was boring as shit. I remember that one.
Yeah, we were both, falling asleep during that fight.
Yeah, because we were on a duos call like this, and we're like,
yeah.
Is anything gonna happen here? Don't get me wrong, all respect to both of them, but yeah.
Yeah, but that fight sucked.
Gustafsson, man, if he's gonna come back, he's gonna come back with that thunder.
Absolutely, I agree.
How about the guy that he's fought twice and lost to, John Jones? He's making headlines right now, still.
I don't really know what to say. I mean, John Jones.
Well, for those that don't know, John Jones put out a tweet, I want to say a few days ago, talking about how he's willing to sit out for multiple years to make changes in fighter pay.
So, John Jones' last fight was Dominic Reyes, which he
lost.
Which he lost, but they gave him the win because he's John Jones. So, John Jones, in my opinion, is being a little bitchy, and he needs to stop crying, honestly. I think he's being a little bitchy, and I know you're going to disagree with me about Dana White, but, I don't see how Dana White has really, screwed over his fighters. Can you, maybe explain it better so I understand?
So, the only thing I'm going to disagree with about Dana White is the fact that, let's be real about this. You are the president of this company, and you are airing your dirty laundry with a fighter on social media. That is the most unprofessional thing you could do. I have a lot of respect for Dana White. I do, as someone who grew up watching MMA, seeing them take the UFC from what it was to what it is now, I have a lot of respect for Dana White. That being said, you don't air your dirty laundry with a fighter on the internet. You solve that behind closed doors, and that goes the same with all the fighters that have the issues. That being said, I can somewhat relate to what John Jones is saying. I believe MMA fighters get severely underpaid. Because he talks about, he trains at Jackson Wink, and he talks about there are guys that are starting out that are in the UFC and not even starting out anymore. Like they're established names. They get paid so little, they have to live at the gym because they can't afford a house. Like I can see what he's talking about. I can see why he's willing to do that. But the problem is, you're a champion. You set a precedent, and if you're not willing to fight, you shouldn't be a champion. I get what he's doing but he shouldn't be doing it.
So I agree that some, not all, of course not all, but some fighters are underpaid. And I mean, like guys like Khabib and Conor, and I don't care what anybody says. John Jones is rich from the UFC.
Hey, do you know what fighter makes more money than Khabib?
Conor.
There's another one.
Hang on. Who is it? DC?
Alistair Overeem.
He's a vet.
But he makes $9 million a fight. Although, come on, it's Alistair Overeem. You're going to pay him whatever he wants to get out of the cage. One of the greatest ever. But I'm sorry, your point?
So, yeah, John Jones, in my opinion, I think he's being dramatic. I think he's just trying to get attention. And, yeah, that's really it. I don't really have much else to say about that.
You know who I do want to talk about? The Phenom.
What's that?
You said, you know who I want to talk about? It's the Phenom, Mr. Vitor Belfort. Have you seen the pictures circulating the internet of him?
I have not, actually.
He is disgustingly jacked ahead of his debut for One Championship. So if anyone isn't familiar or aren't aware, One Championship will be coming back July 31st. I went to check on the card. There's only 2 fights announced. 2 Muay Thai championships, which I'm excited for. I'll be watching that. But he's making his One Championship debut.
Yeah.
I really think he's back with TRT. So he has a health issue. I can't remember what it was, that his body doesn't produce enough testosterone. So for the longest time, he was doing testosterone replacement therapy, and it was allowed in the UFC. They would let him fight, and you saw his last couple fights when USADA banned the whole thing, which is why I can't stand USADA. No, because that's a health thing. You know, you want a fighter to be healthy, and the last couple fights in the UFC, Vitor looked terrible. Like, you could tell his body wasn't up to par. He didn't look good in the cage. But he looks good. And I am excited.
That's good, yeah.
I'm excited for him to fight, because it's been a while.
Yeah. Well, I'm just excited for One Championship to be coming back.
Yeah.
In general.
Considering
because
where they
fighting.
mainly operate in the world and the current world situation, it's going to be exciting to see them come back. For
Absolutely.
Sure. Brandon Allen, we mentioned the 3 facial bone fractures. It's being reported that he's likely out until 2021.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And
I honestly wouldn't be surprised at all.
He may, the way it sounds is he may be moving back up to heavyweight.
Really?
Or light heavyweight, I'm sorry.
No, I know what you meant. Yeah.
Because I don't. There wasn't really a lot in specifics when I was looking at the article. The only thing I did hear that there were 3 facial bone fractures. They were not specific to how many and where, but it was nose and orbital floor bone to be specific. Which those are tough injuries. Your nose, because it's going to be sensitive for a good amount of time.
So can we also acknowledge that he won the fight
with a destroyed face?
With a destroyed face. Mad kudos to Brandon Allen.
We did not mention fight of the night or fight bonuses. The two fights to receive for the $50,000 bonus for the fight night were Dustin Poirier versus Dan Hooker's fight of the night, and performance of the night was Julian Erosa over Kay Hansen. So there's your 3 $50,000 bonuses for the fight.
Agreed.
Did you just hear my dad in the background saying it sure was? What, Kay Hansen? Yeah, even my dad said the armbar was crazy.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Here's big news, because we're obviously not going to be talking about 251 this week. I do want to mention, however, that on Ariel Helwani's show on YouTube, he had Paige Van Zant on, who will be fighting for the first time in a while. She's had a couple of injuries that's prevented her from fighting. She has one fight left in her UFC contract, and that is 251. After that, she plans on testing free agency.
That's really interesting to me. You told me before you think she's going to Bellator. I agree because her husband fights there.
Her husband fights there, and yeah.
And that makes the most sense for her. She can make good money there too, I feel like. So
yeah, not only that, you're fighting for someone who is an amazing president in Scott Coker, who's done this before. You're also leaving a women's division that is stacked.
Absolutely.
Stacked. There right now, Paige, she has to get back on track. And that's the biggest thing. She's got to get back on track. She hasn't fought in a while. So for her to say right now she's a championship contender in the UFC, no, because there are so many people ahead of her that are just top tier. In Bellator, though, they're lacking women. They're lacking top tier women. And I am excited to see if that's where she goes, to see what she does there. But yeah. I think that's a big, big move, and that's awesome for her.
I agree. We haven't disagreed yet, so
and who's to say she goes to Bellator? You have viable options. You've got the Professional Fighters League. You've got one championship. You've got Invicta. You've got tons of places she can go. You know.
I see her most likely going to Bellator.
But, yeah, Bellator makes the most sense, mostly because her husband fights there, and obviously it'd make life a lot easier for both of them travel wise and contract wise. You're going to fight in the same promotion.
Is it also possible that she could stay in the UFC?
No. Well, yes and no. I think if Dana comes to her with a good enough contract that wants her to keep her there, I could see that. But from the sounds of it, it just doesn't sound like she wants to stay there right now.
Makes sense. I mean, probably Bellator, but we'll see what happens with her. She's a great fighter. She needs to win on July 11th, I think.
And I really think she can.
I think she can too.
Because that's a good fight. So
versus Ribas, right?
Yeah, Amanda Ribas. Yeah. So and Ribas is no joke. So that's gonna be fun, man. I'm looking forward to that fight.
Absolutely, I am too.
Here's something I do want to talk about. We talked about last week that obviously due to recording we didn't hear. But I think the UFC should stop with this 5-round non-title fight stuff.
Disagree. This is where we finally hit a disagreement.
Here's why. And the UFC is the only promotion that does this. And they do it for the wrong reasons, I think. I get it, yeah, you've got people in the main event, you want to make sure if you're going to put them in the main event, they're going to be title pictures soon. I get that. I get you want them to be prepared. But you're extending a fight longer than it probably needs to go. And you're doing it for mostly ratings and like just revenue. Like for me, that's not enough of a good reason to have a non-title fight main event for 5 rounds.
Okay, so let me just share my view on this.
Give it to me.
I disagree. What makes a main event? Not it's too much like a prelim. If you make it of the main event 3 rounds, it's just like any other fight. No, this is the main fight of the night. This is what the night card is titled after. You know, Poirier versus Hooker should go 5 rounds, I think, because that is the main event. It's the big thing of the night. So I don't see why it's a big deal. Like, does it really bother you that much, or?
It just makes no sense to me because I remember when they didn't do it, and it wasn't that long ago. I want to say it's only been in effect for like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So it's still relatively a new concept, but it just doesn't make sense to me. You're one of the top tier promotions in the world, but that's one of the only different things you're doing. It's like, okay, that's great, but if you have heavyweights as the main event non-title fight, we're gonna sit there for extra 2 rounds. If the fight's boring, they're just gonna stand there gassed, just throwing little punches. Or if it's already a boring fight, you gotta sit through 2 more hours. It's like you have to pick and choose that type of fight, you know?
Well, you also gotta realize, like, yeah, it could be boring, but it could be a great fight as well. So, like, let's say the fight's going really good. The 2 guys are really starting to, feel good going into the fight, going into like the 3rd round, and then that's it. They can't fight 4 and 5. They just cut it. It feels like you'd be cutting it short.
Right.
So that's how I feel about it.
Well, I
but
totally get that. Totally get it.
if there
Makes sense.
if it's a non-title main event, and after the third round, I just think of it like, oh, we get 2 more rounds of fighting. So that's great.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
That's just how I think about it. I don't think it's a big deal. I mean, if they changed it back to just 3 rounds, I really wouldn't care.
Yeah.
But I don't see it as really an issue. So.
Well, my dear friend, I think this is the one we have to agree to disagree on.
Yes, it is, sir.
Also, speaking of topics that the UFC should and shouldn't do, Grand Prix tournaments.
Grand Prix tournaments? Okay.
They should do it. Because
That'd be
of
so
how
cool.
successful Pride has done it. Pride had been doing it forever. Bellator currently does it. And Bellator, the way Bellator does it, and I love it, is as a matter of fact, we talk about the welterweight Grand Prix, where the champion has to defend the belt all the way through. So Rory McDonald at that point had to defend the belt like 3 times before he got to Douglas Lima, which I was actually at that fight. You guys can find on the channel the vlog for that. And he ended up losing the title in the finals. They're doing it with the featherweight Grand Prix. So Patricio Pitbull has to defend his belt every time, and you're fighting against the best welterweight division or best featherweight division on the planet. And I mentioned it last week, and I'm going to keep mentioning it until forever because it's the truth that Bellator's got the best featherweight division in the world.
Well, they didn't hear you last week.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. No one heard it last week. So, I honestly like. What was it? The women's strawweight division. You mean to tell me you wouldn't love to see a Grand Prix tournament there?
I would. I agree with
How
you.
about the
Grand Prix tournament.
bantamweights? The men's bantamweight division would be fucking crazy.
So, the UFC has guidelines right now due to COVID-19,
No,
and
of
I
course.
don't know what would have to change for them to get this through.
To
But
be honest, nothing. Nothing
Really?
would have to change.
well, I'm just saying I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So
you're not, and I'm not saying do everything on one night. That's not but to hold a tournament to extend over the year, even with what's going on now, yeah, there's no reason they can't do it. It's just not something. It's not something that they look at. I think they should, because you bring excitement not only to your big name fighters, but you're doing what Bellator does better than the UFC, and you build stars. You build stars. You build a weight class. You're showing, hey, we got giant names, but we also got these other killers out there that we can promote. You know?
yeah, I agree. Grand Prix tournament, I'm in. I'm for it. It would be awesome. So Dana White, let's do it.
Dana, step it up. How about UFC versus Bellator? Would you be in for that?
Yeah, I'm in for UFC versus anything. UFC versus UFC, UFC versus One Championship, anything. Especially Bellator, because Bellator is the second, in my opinion, second most exciting.
I would say right now
league.
it's a very, very, very close second, run by a guy who ran Strikeforce, which was as big, if not bigger, than the UFC at one point. I mean, champion versus champion fights, man. We can get Cyborg versus Nunes too.
Yep.
Douglas Lima versus Kamaru Usman.
Well, let me stop you really quick. Do you really want to see Cyborg Nunes again?
Honestly, yes. I
do. You really?
I do. I would love to see that fight happen again.
Cyborg's gonna lose again.
I would love to see it.
To see Cyborg lose again?
The big fight I want to see. Valentina Shevchenko versus Ilima-Lei Macfarlane.
Valentina, I think Valentina would win that fight, but I'm not taking anything away from McFarlane. I'm not taking anything away from McFarlane.
Dude, Valentina is amazing. One of the best fighters in the world, but Ilima-Lei Macfarlane's undefeated.
Yeah.
So that would be a crazy fight. Patricio Pitbull versus Habib. A Brazilian versus a Russian. That would be fun.
I'm sensing a disagreement here.
But however that fight happens, that would be fun.
Who would you think? Who do you think would win that fight?
Well, the difference is Habib is the wrestler, and Patricio does everything. So it would have to be. It would be the classic Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu versus wrestling.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Habib might probably win that fight. I don't know
who would win that fight, but I would see it. I'd love to see it.
I'd pay for that. Absolutely.
I'd pay for that hard. Dana, Scott Coker, get together. Make it
Have some talks. Let's do it.
I know but I understand why the UFC probably won't do it, because they had an issue a long time ago. I want to say it was Pride, before Zuffa bought Pride, and they got screwed over big on a cross promotion fight. And since then, the UFC refuses to do it. I get it, but you guys have tried to buy Bellator, and Viacom said no. So let's just see best of the best go at it. I'd be happy with that. What did we talk about last week or 2 weeks ago? No, was it last week? It was last week, yeah. We came up with the idea of, we were talking about trade. We all talked about the first ever trade in MMA, which was from one championship in UFC, sent Ben Askren to the UFC, and Demetrius Johnson to one championship. Obviously, poor timing on the UFC's part to get Ben Askren, who's at the end of his career.
And he got finished.
He got knocked out pretty bad with the luckiest knee ever. I don't care what anyone says. As someone who's got martial arts background, that was the luckiest knee I've ever seen in my life. So
Absolutely.
anyone, Masvidal's the man. He got lucky.
Well, it really was. All right, I know this isn't a topic of ours, but just really quick to share on that. It was lucky, I agree, because Ben Askren's a wrestler, and he landed that knee as Askren was going for a shot.
There's no predicting that's going to happen. You just either it happens or
that timing is unbelievable. Yeah. So, anyway. So
it prompted us to come up with some trades. Now I know Nick had his, and I think you lost yours.
Well, I didn't really. Sure. I'd rather hear your trades, because I still need to learn about Bellator more.
Yeah. So here are my trades. The first one is between one championship in the UFC. The UFC will get B-Win, and one championship gets Claudia Gadelha.
Not bad at all.
So here's my thinking behind it. Okay, one championship really trying to appease to the U.S. market. Now the problem is they don't have a lot of names well known in the UFC, or well known from the U.S. Now, if you add Claudia Gadelha to that, you're not only helping your U.S. market, but you're helping your Brazilian market, which is something that a company they're based out of Singapore, so that they're trying to bring that here. That would help them tremendously. Now, adding B-Win to the UFC, granted she's 5-5, her record's not the best right now, but what you're doing is you're taking an American fighter, bringing her home, and you open up the women's atomweights division for something that could be available at 105.
Yeah. So, I like that trade. What was your next one?
My next one, Daniel Strauss coming from Bellator and sending Dustin Poirier to Bellator.
I just don't like seeing Dustin Poirier leave.
So what was that?
I said I don't like seeing Dustin Poirier leave the UFC,
so
but
let me tell you why. So this is another trade that's beneficial for both. All right, Dustin Poirier, former interim lightweight champion. We know how good he is.
Great fighter.
The problem is with Bellator, there's not a lot at 155.
Yep.
We have Brent Primus, Michael Chandler. Like, there are fighters at 155, but there aren't big name people.
Mm-hmm.
If you send Dustin Poirier over to Bellator, throw him against Patricio Pitbull first fight for the belt, you kidding me? That's going to be a war. Now, Daniel Strauss is a prime example of a former champion, former featherweight champion, and the UFC has a problem. They have a featherweight problem. That their featherweight championship, aspirations, stop after Max Holloway.
Can we also agree that the lightweight has some issue, or the lightweight division has issues in the UFC, because
Absolutely.
It's really not competitive either.
No,
so that's why I think
Khabib's
losing Dustin would hurt.
So losing Poirier is both good and bad for the UFC. I feel like at this point right now, Poirier can do better for Bellator than he can do for the UFC.
I just think Poirier. It would be too much of a loss for the UFC lightweight division, because Khabib's really got that locked in right now. I mean, we'll see what happens with Gaethje, but
yeah,
you got really him and Gaethje, and Ferguson just got beat up, and Dan Hooker's good, but he just lost to Poirier. But it's a weak division right now.
We're shaking things up.
And Connor just retired. Don't forget.
Yeah.
So.
Well, here's the biggest thing. You want to talk about big shakeups? How about we send Darren Till to Bellator?
Love that.
Yeah,
I don't
but
like
you know
Darren
who they're
Till.
going to get in return?
Who likes Darren Till?
Nobody. But you know who the UFC would get in return? Dylan
Who?
Dennis.
I would love that. Dylan Dennis. Yes.
All right, so again, another issue at 185 for Bellator. Rafael Lovato Jr. has to retire due to health issues. Obviously, taking the belt from Gegard Mousasi. There's not a lot happening at 185. Like, there is, but there isn't. I think Darren Till going in there would shake things up. Plus, who's going to out-wrestle Kamaru Usman? No one in the UFC 170.
No.
So you send Dylan Dennis over there, and you let those two have a straight-up wrestling match for 5 rounds?
Dylan Dennis's jiu-jitsu is unbelievable.
Yes.
He's an absolute master on the ground.
He's a monster on the ground. You let
He's an
those
absolute
two
beast.
have any sort of ground game for 5 rounds. And you tell me that wouldn't be a fight you want to see happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have anything off the top of your head that you can think of?
No, I mean, I would love to see Dennis versus Usman, like wrestling. That would be, come on. Like, that's a great fight. But we have to see what happens with Gilbert Burns, and we will get to that next week.
We
but
will.
I just wanted to say.
We originally planned on talking about 251 this weekend, but there are no fights this weekend. So we're going to wait till next week for that. We'll bring more for you guys on that. But, yeah. Any final thoughts before we end this beast?
Really quick, I just want to say, guys, I'm working with my buddy Jake right now, and we're gonna set up a baseball podcast. Just a quick episode on the baseball season resuming, and my thoughts and Chris's thoughts and Jake's thoughts. It's just in the works right now. It probably won't be for a little bit, but I just want to say we're trying to get that going for all you baseball fans watching this.
I'll do a podcast with you guys about baseball.
Absolutely.
Totally down.
Plus, you're trying to get back into it, right?
Baseball? Yeah. So I've been a lifelong baseball fan, obviously, like most people, and then over the years, just kind of fell off to the point where now with the past couple of years, I've been really trying to get back into it. So hopefully, my Yankees will take care of business this year. I know it's very unpopular opinion with people. I am a Yankees fan.
With some people. A lot of people do think the Yankees will do good, but all right, well, that's for the podcast. That's for the podcast. Okay. But really, that and my social media, Nick Kakuro on Instagram, and Nick C273 on Snapchat, and then N Kakuro on Twitter. Follow me. Ask me any questions about our podcast, any questions in general.
And as always, I'll toss it in the description. I'll toss both of ours. You guys know where to find me. For those that follow my radio show that know we've been on a bit of a hiatus since February.
Yep.
Look to the future, because Wishful Thinking will be returning to ICRV. Shout out Dave Williams and the whole crew at ICRV. We will be heading back, so that'll be in the works. Look for that. Go check out ICRV. Go show their love. Tell them I sent you. I'll leave all that in the description. Everyone enjoy your 4th of July weekend. I know I will be. I'm a big racing fan, and some racing history is about to be made this weekend. So that'll be fun. Do you have any plans for 4th of July?
Just spend time with my family, have a barbecue, and I'm going to watch a ton of spring training baseball.
There you go. So until next week, we love you guys. Thank you so much for listening. If you have anything to add, throw it in the comments. We love hearing from you guys. And, of course, until next week, we'll see you then.
And I give you the Herb Dean sign-off.
See you later, guys.